NYCBERS YouTube channel. I will now begin the meeting by calling roll. Frank Sarabella, Donald Nesbitt, absent. Gregory Faulkner, he's on the thing. Anthony Giordano,
Present.
and Karina Paulin, present. We have quorum. I would also like to note for the record that John Dorsa
Virtually.
is joining us virtually as a designee from the New York City Controller. Lander's office is in attendance. Now, agenda 1 is to consider the minutes from the January 28, 2025 Executive Committee meeting, a summary of which was included in your packet sent prior to the meeting. May I get a motion to approve?
So moved.
Tony, can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Any abstentions? Any opposed? Motion carries. We have no contract items for today's meeting, so we begin with introductory comments by Innovation and Risk Department Lead Salil Mehta.
Yes.
May I have a motion to consider?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Okay. Motion by Tony, second by Frank. Salil?
Sure. Thank you. Just a few comments. I'll just, briefly just show, as usual, these are the performance statistics. Over the last year, performance has been good. We are trailing benchmarks by a little bit over multiple horizons, and now we have 10-year numbers as well. We show the asset allocation again. The numbers haven't changed that much over the course of the last year, perhaps. U.S. equities underweight, roughly 5%, private equity overweight, our target by about 4.5%. What I really wanted to talk about here, though, is, we've done, we've talked about, I just want to talk about diversity statistics. So we've, over the last couple of years, we've gone through the evolution of looking at diversity metrics here at the committee. It's also been done in other ways. They have a team at BAM. Taffy's done it. Our private market consultants have looked at it. We've used vendors like Linux Park and others. And I thought something that would be interesting with the amount of information that we've had, something that we're sort of able to offer, is something unique about some of the decisions that are made here at the executive committee. So at least you have a metric to gauge how, or, just what's the relative performance from the data that we have that's unique and that, can be analyzed, because we do spend a lot of time with it. So if you remember, at the start of the last calendar year of 20, going back to the end of around December 2023, there were a lot of maybe arguments kind of within the executive committee concerning, when you look at a manager, you look at the types of diversity statistics that are shown, and they're presented in ways where it's very hard to tease out specific cells. So you might see gender representation as one summary stat. You may see racial statistics as another stat, but you may not see the combination. You may not know, for example, if you see a high female proportion at a firm, exactly what's the racial makeup of that gender, or some other ways. And so looking at the table, I've worked with our department as well as trying to look at Linux Park data and other data to see kind of how do we statistically look at the cells so that it's actually gets to the questions that we're ultimately asking, but then had to go back and go through additional feedback loops. So what exactly is the cell count or the census of African-American men, African-American women, white men, white women, like every combination. So you had a table when you're looking at investments that were what I call a statistician MECE. They're mutually exclusive and completely exhaustive. You've answered all the questions by looking at a table as best as you could consistently across the makeup of the investment firm. So fast forward, we've gone, we have a couple of years of looking at data from the last 1 year as well as prospective pipeline data. The executive committee the folks here, and the trustees really haven't changed from the executive committee. We've looked at approximately 30 investments in the private markets put into the portfolio. Roughly 25 have been voted on here at the committee. The remainder either were, evergreen or weren't voted on at all. They were or not approved at all. They were rejected. So you can see kind of what has been the trend in terms of the the types of investments that have come in by dollar amount and by count. And I just wanted to sort of report that I put this through machine learning data and AI models, and just trying to cut through the noise. And now that we've looked at a sample size, 25 investments were approved by this executive committee over the last 1 year, and then some more at the very beginning of this year. And basically, the highlight is that it's a sample size with different size firms, but we have made improvement, and that's a positive thing. If you look at the type of performance in the first half of last year, 2024, we had roughly we're roughly around 16% of the investments were BIPOC, and roughly 10% by dollar amount. And then if you look at more recently,
Of those 25.
yeah, in the first half of the year, that portion of the 25. And then more recently, it's been trending towards a run rate of around 40% of the investments, and roughly 40% by dollar amount as well. The investment sizes have gotten smaller, but I just want to state that, and I've outlined some of this, but just, from what I can just, from an initial look at the information, the conversations and the decisions to narrow the pipeline look very specifically and only show, or not only show, but try to really focus on showing BIPOC investments has led to a meaningful increase in, but at the levels I've mentioned, roughly 40%, where before, without the focus from the committee, without looking at the data in a specific way at the meetings, it was significantly lower, about 2.5 times lower.
I'm sorry, did you email this somewhere? I can't see any of this. I can't see it.
No, I just had some notes.
It's not, this is not, it's okay.
Just recently captured analysis. It was just summary.
Make that statement again you said about the diversity managers. Make that again.
Oh yeah, so before we really got into the meat of stuff, a year ago it was roughly 16% by count and roughly 10% by dollar amount were BIPOC, the private that were approved by the committee, and it's gone up roughly 2.5 times on both measures, so roughly 40% on both more recently. So there is a very conscientious effort to get to a certain level. I can't predict. You guys probably predict better than me in terms of where it's going. Could be tailing off at that, but that's not an accident. That's not something that is, and that's the most I can do. Like I said, with all the analytics that we can do on a spreadsheet with roughly 50 rows. And I sort of wanted to kind of mention that because I just want to share the information as I promised I would, once it got to a point where we could actually tease out and back up from the noise of individual gyrations and small sample, and actually look at what's the underlying trend, and is it meaningful?
Passed a resolution, we made it happen.
No, yeah, so I wanted to show that, and also thank the Oxia folks for participating with us and actually helping populate these tables on a basis where we can do this.
And so if I get here, in fact, we're missing one. I think there was part of a good manager that I think was closing by the end of February, BIPOC manager, part of the Evergreen program. If we would have been able to get in, I think we're going to miss it because we're not.
When's it closing?
It's closing February, the end of February. I think today.
Tomorrow.
Yeah, today. So yeah, but I think part of the Evergreen program. I don't know if we could get in after, but I was told it was very good. Black-owned manager.
Which manager, Tony?
I don't know. Anash had mentioned that it was one.
Well, we are
From the Evergreen
we're
Grant.
public.
Oh, we're public.
Public. Would you like to go to executive?
We're going to executive next. Let's talk about that there.
Okay. The Evergreen managers, which have been, a small number, few and far between, they're generally much smaller dollar size amounts. And of course, that's not something I can say are specific, I guess, decisions that you guys are making. So it's a different analysis. So I didn't pollute the what I just said with mixing that in.
But it's been our desire
Oh, yeah,
to have
it's a
smaller
very good-
bites and
good-
to have
good
more
positive.
diverse managers.
Yeah,
So
very-
we're
very-
fulfilling it seems like what's an uphill battle most of the time, but it seems like we're fulfilling what the goal, I guess.
Yeah,
Is the good news.
I feel happy sort of presenting that, and it is the best I can do with the information that's there. And it was not possible for the reason I described a while back, and it's sort of unique to some of the information that we have.
I have a question for you. The AI that you're using the system to support this work, are they using the general definitions of how we identify and determine what is considered BIPOC
It's
and or
over-
diverse or emerging?
It's a single indicator of over 51%. Is that right? 51%.
NWB. It depends if you're following. We have many times discussed like maybe you should have your own definition. Then you have asked to mention BIPOC if it's more than 50%, so 51%. But I think BOM is using the 33%.
Okay. I think
For private markets, it's 20. Yeah.
what do we do with public? 51. Okay, so first of all, we need to socialize and understand the definitions because they mean different things, right? And it's not, I mean, if we make a general statement that we're meeting this and meeting that, from where I sit, we always have to look at the definition of, what the percentage is. So I heard for public, we're doing what?
We're doing anything over 50%.
51%, which is the standard. And
It's
then
the
for
broad.
private, we're doing 33%.
33, but we share all the details, so share
Okay.
with you what's
So I think, and I think, for me, and that we should probably talk to the larger board, given that we're trying to leverage AI, it should give us the ability to be more, specific and looking at it both ways without a lot of manual extra work, right? And so when we do that, we should definitely be intentional to be able to define, here's what, it's 33 for private, it's 51 for public, and then if we went to 51 on private, where did we actually end up? And what is the potential opportunity if there's a gap, or is there anything we can do to adjust that, right? Because it's much harder to do if you're doing it manually, but if you have, an AI and a system that can very easily assess that for you and evaluate that, then we should be leveraging that across the board.
One thing I'll just mention, so AI and machine learning, and it takes a very large sample size in order to bleed out very specific questions. I had a very hard time struggling why I had to wait to barely get to just a single indicator of this. But if I had asked for a low level BIPOC representation versus high level and those distinctions, or what I wanted to do was actually go, asset class by asset class and say, well, how do you make these comments? But it just takes a lot more data to get to that next question. But that doesn't mean I won't look at it, but I just have to be honest with if I show something where I'm like, it's just the confidence around that answer, because it'll give you an answer, but it may not, it might also mislead a little bit. But yeah, it was in the back of my mind to look at that and many other attributes I wanted, but this was just the initial slab at what I want. I had promised to look at it.
If we can talk this offline, but if you need data in regards to the public managers that BERS has, Siegel Marco collects DEI data on all of our managers. So we have statistics for the last few years of our own survey that we collect in our system. And if you need some of that raw data for the managers that you have, we can certainly supply it to you.
I would also say this is a good start, but as we know, iterative AI, you're teaching it as you go. And so just accepting it as is. I think if we're serious about tracking and the definitions, the more we ask it to do that, the better it will get at doing that, right? And so I think we should start proactively setting that up and setting that regular cadence up. While we may not get what we're looking for today, right? But it's a good start. The more we do of it, the better it will become at really identifying and tracking and informing us on the data that we want to be informed of.
No.
No, and I just not to be sour on a positive potential note, but also coming off of the diversity conferences about the city controller and the state controller and Black History Month. I'm still very concerned that as the numbers are being bandied about, we're using on a larger scale, using the amorphous numbers of not including indexed funds as part of the denominator. The denominator has to be correct. And we had this after the New York City Controllers Conference. I was having dinner with one of the people from the state of Connecticut. And I said, your numbers, do you reduce them by the amount of indexed funds? I said, absolutely not. It's a flat number.
Yeah.
And so CalSTRS may do it. I don't think we should be doing it.
Right. So that's, again, a position that we need to debate and discuss and make a decision on, but we can't keep going back and forth. And I am not a proponent of reducing the denominator to make the outcome look better, because it's not
Politically expedient.
Well, whatever you want to call it. I just like to know the truth and work from a place of accuracy and truth versus padding numbers to make them look better. When the data will say whatever you want it to say, but is it giving us the impact and outcome that we're looking for? That would be my position.
But it's good news.
Well, no, more to come on all this, and the new consultant has already been, prepped them with these are the expectations on how we're going to keep pushing this forward. That's all I have.
Any other questions? None? Okay. We can begin now with agenda 4. We have a discussion item for executive session. Do I have a motion to enter executive session? Frank, second.
Second.
Tony, thank you. All those in favor of entering executive session, please indicate with an aye. Aye. Any abstentions? Any oppositions? The motion passes. Let's end executive session. Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Tony, second. All right. All in favor of ending executive session? Aye. Aye. Any abstentions? Any opposed? We are now ending executive session. Okay, we will now report out from executive session. And Salil will give the summary.
Sure, thank you. We had one discussion of the annual equity plan as well as one discussion of the fixed income plan.
That's it. That was the last item on the agenda for today's executive committee meeting. The next scheduled executive committee meeting for the Board of Education Retirement System is Thursday, March 27th at 12:30 p.m. May I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
So moved.
Tony moves. May I have a second?
Acclamation.
Thanks, second. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Any abstentions? Meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everybody, and have a good afternoon.